everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Read Right to Left podcast. I am G, joined by my always wonderful co-host Ray from Whimsical Pictures.
Hi guys.
And this month, it's February, it's the month of love. We're doing a series spotlight this month, a series that both of us read in the past. And we have reread for this particular episode. This is the 9-volume josei series released by Shoujo Beat called Everyone's Getting Married.
Everyone's getting married.
Oh my goodness.
You know, there's a very limited amount of marriage in this series for a series called Everyone's Getting Married.
I would agree, absolutely. But before we get too much into what the series is about and what our thoughts are on the series, just a reminder, you can find this podcast on all of the podcasting platforms. Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, the YouTube as well. It's a YouTube podcast. You can find it on my channel, Simply G. You can also follow the podcast on Blue Sky. It's Read Right 2 Left at bluesky.com. And our socials will be linked in the description below. But yeah, let's get into this series. Ray, how did you feel revisiting Everybody's Getting Married?
Well... It was an interesting experience because, and I thought it would be, because this series came out during a time when it was like this and Happy Marriage, Happy Mari, were like released kind of side by side, and there really wasn't a lot of strictly josei romance about adults in the workplace on the market. So these got hyped up quite a bit, at least in our circles, right? For that reason. Because there just wasn't a whole lot of josei in general on the market. And finally, we were getting some. That wasn't, horrifically out of print from, CMX or whatever.
Yeah. And I would also put to that, we also hyped it up, right? We are not innocent in
I was
this.
about to get to, because I know that the two of us, read it as it was coming out. And we're recommending it. I know I enjoyed the series as I was reading it. It felt fresh. It felt like something we weren't getting from manga in English at the time. And, I wasn't yet a member of the workforce, right? I was a college student. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was in college when I was reading Everyone's Getting Married. So young, so naive. And it's just interesting revisiting a series that essentially, I read with rose-colored glasses. Because of the dearth of series like it in the market at the time. And looking back on it now that not only am I the same age as the main characters, but also in a time when we are getting a lot more josei manga and a lot more just adult-focused, workplace-focused romance series, josei or not, than we had been. Certainly, there's a lot of, josei that we don't get. But we get it fairly regularly. And that did
Yes.
not used to be the case.
Absolutely. We now sort of have dedicated imprints from major publishers who focus on josei, or at least this more mature adult romance that deals with adult characters, working adult characters. I'd also like to, like, from my perspective, I agree, and I guess I want to compound on the idea that I enjoyed the series as it came out. There was ups and downs throughout the series, but for me, when it was coming out, I personally really appreciated a series that explored the nuance of what a relationship is and sort of the importance of marriage for individuals and like having that conversation. I don't think that actually ended up being the point of this series.
Get into it.
But we'll get into it. But it was something that, for me, again, I was also in sort of the later stages of my university. So I wasn't working full time. I did have part-time work, but I was a full-time student. And I also think a point we need to make is that this is me remembering from many, many years ago, because this was circa 2016, that we were both single as well. So we were coming from, I don't know, when you're young and single, and it's nice to have an idea of relationships and romance. But now, both of us are working adults. I'm in my 30s. Ray is not too far behind me. We are both in relationships. We've both been in relationships for a little while now. I say a little while, long time, especially for Ray. And so we have a bit more, I guess, experience maybe, or at least we're living it, right? So these are...
I would say more... I'm not going to say that, like, no couple's gonna be able to, like no member of any couple is gonna be able to, like, relate to these characters' experiences, because I don't think that's true. I think it's more that we now both have experiences of our own to compare it to.
Yes.
Whereas that
wasn't... when I say experience, I mean more so, I think as older people and as people who've had just more exposure to our own lives, we've evolved and we've changed our perspective on things, and just the way, like, relationships and the idea of marriage has changed as well. When you look at, like, societally and social media and those sorts of things, politically, there's a lot going on in that space right now. So, and those are all things that we'll talk about, but this particular series, at the time when it was being released, felt different. If you look different to what was coming out, and comparable, if you asked someone now whether you would recommend it, I'm sure there are there is reasons perhaps to recommend this for certain readers, but if someone's looking for a good, like, romance between adults, this would not be on the top of the pile.
Yeah, there's others to go to first, right?
And even if you're just looking for a josei, this is not the first off the rung.
But yeah, it felt different. It felt fresh back at the time. I would also say, compared to what little, like, josei that we did have, that was mostly also of the sort of more Harlequin variety. like Hapimari, and we also had like Midnight Secretary and eventually Spell of Desire back then, which those are both by the same creator. And those are both definitely like, you know, very domineering man in a position of power within the workplace over the heroine who's just kind of like, you know, oh no, don't ravish me. Like, and my voluptuous bosom. So this also felt like a breath of fresh air in that, you know, it's not a blatantly abusive relationship dynamic. It's not a boss and his dowdy secretary. It's not, it's a heroine who has a bit of spunk as well. More of, I have my reservations about her, but she, compared to like, say, the main character of like Midnight Secretary, she definitely has more going on than that.
Yes. Yeah.
And we do get quite a bit of both of their jobs. They don't work at the same company or in the same field. But they're both like very accomplished at their workplace, and that doesn't change throughout the series. So like her work doesn't really get sidelined. So yeah, in that regard as well, like compared to the other sort of Harlequin romance josei titles we were getting, the small pittance we had, this one did feel less yucky.
Well, exactly. I think because I think of that era, right, of manga, which is almost 10 years ago now, which is a horrifying thing to consider. But
can I go back, like, to when, like, how the world was, maybe?
Yeah. Different time. When, as Ray said, we did have Happy Mario. There was some Harlequin romance kind of bodice ripper stuff that was being released in, I guess, josei circles, quote unquote. But the other, I guess, flagship josei that stood out at the time was Princess Jellyfish. But that isn't... I mean, there is romance in that series, but it's much more a comedy, right? It's much more focused on a larger cast of characters and a particular industry, and the relationship and friendships between all of these characters. So it's not quite the same. Like it you would read it for romance, but it's not why you would start it necessarily. You read it because it's funny and there's, you know, quirky characters and it's pretty clued in on the fashion industry and things. And the romance is kind of additional to that, and it's not really resolved in the same way that, or a focus in the same way that it is in these types of series, and it's out of the work, like the traditional workforce.
Yeah. The fact that the main character is like 19 or 20 at the start of that series.
Yeah, the two main characters are university student age.
Yeah.
Which
is a very different, as we're discussing, is a very different stage of life. So, yeah. We should probably go over what the series is about. It's not too complicated, as it is a workplace romance. We have our main female character, who she works in real estate, I think. No, she's like, like home loans.
She's in real estate. Yeah.
Um, so, she's very, like, hyper competent at her job. She is amazing at it, and she loves doing it. She's super dedicated. But, the biggest, desire in her life, the thing that she wants for her future, is she wants to get married, and she wants to settle down, and she wants to become a full-time homemaker. No one can deter her from this path. She knows this is what she wants. And she's, like, desperate for it. And when we meet her, she's been in a relationship with a guy for 5 years. And is kind of expecting that, the date she's going on tonight or whatever, he's gonna, pop the question. But instead, of course, he breaks up with her, citing her obsession with getting married as a reason. So she's like, I had it all planned out. This was going to be the relationship that was going to get me what I wanted, which was, to get married and be a housewife.
Be a housewife, have kids, look after our kids, and look after the home, and look after my husband, and live happily ever after.
Yep. So that doesn't work out. Meanwhile, at a friend's wedding, where she makes sure to catch the bouquet, she meets Ryu Nanami. The series will not let you forget his name. No. Who is, a very handsome, eligible bachelor. He is an up-and-coming newscaster and MC. Quickly rising through the ranks. He is also hyper-competent, super work-focused, loves what he does, wants to do the best job he possibly can, has dreams of becoming, like, a mainstream, like, newscaster, right? Like, at the point that we meet him, he's mostly doing, like, morning show, like, MC type of stuff. Variety show and MC stuff. But he wants to be a newscaster. Like, headlining newscaster. But anyway, our two have their meet cute, and quickly learn that they are just utterly incompatible in what they want for their lives, because Ryu Nanami thinks that marriage is a curse and a shackle. He never wants to get married, and he doesn't understand why anybody would want to get married. And he is not going to change his mind. Never, ever. This is the one thing that he knows about himself, is that he's never going to get married. Naturally, after meeting each other by chance about 2 times, they start a relationship. And they spend the rest of the series in a relationship, despite having completely different visions of their futures.
Yeah, they're diametrically opposed. Just couldn't be further on the scale from each other.
Yeah, and then they refuse to talk about it with each other in any meaningful way, and they just have lots of really boring sex.
Until they don't, because they're on a long distance relationship, and then
we'll get to the long distance relationship. Yeah. So that's the whole thing. It's like they're in a relationship, but one of them wants to get married and the other one doesn't.
Yeah.
So where to begin?
Yeah. I also
yeah.
just before we continue like into this particular couple, because we do have a secondary couple who are like the best friends of each of our main characters. They are also in a relationship, but they're kind of the opposite, wherein the woman does not interested in marriage, doesn't really want that for herself, and then the guy, he is like really into marriage, he wants to get married. So they kind of act as a foil. They're not as prominent, like they're not really prominent. They more so act as a catalyst for other things, our other main characters to do stuff. But I just wanted to point that out because I have things to say about that as well.
Well, I just think it's incredibly funny that like the beta couple guy like proposes to the beta couple girl. Their names are Hiroki and Ryo. So Hiroki like proposes to Ryo like immediately, and she says no, and he just continues to go out with her and continues to propose over and over throughout the course of the series. And it's just very funny that it just was not within the realm of possible imagining for this mangaka that, you know, maybe our main character could have tried popping the question herself. There's a lot of little things in here that are just like, this mangaka seems like a very particular kind of woman.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely no queer friends who are out to her is a very big assumption I have to make. Because it's just like, it's so foreign to me, because it's like, with me in my relationship, which is long distance, has been long distance from the start, we've always been keenly aware of like marriage as a possible eventuality, and we just like talk about it, you know. Like we just, you know, chat about it. We're like, hey, you know, thinking about the timing, thinking about you know what it's gonna look like, you know, legally, especially with being an international couple, like obviously with me planning to move to where they live, you know, it's on the table as like, you know, do we want to get married as a way to kind of help with the immigration process, make it less the way that it is. And it's just like a very logical conversation, you know? It's not like, oh, when is he going to propose? It's like, we're both aware that it's there, that we're both interested in it. And we communicate like adults. I don't know.
Well, exactly. And again, I said this sort of before we started recording, but I don't think this is like a queer versus heterosexual thing, because my relationship, we're not at the point of any like marriage as a possibility. We're not even a year into it. But even before we were together, we've had discussions about like, both of us want kids, and I made it quite clear that like I would prefer to be married before thinking about children. Not that, you know, it either or is better. It's just, for me, I would prefer that. And I made that known because his brother has just had a child with his fiance. They're not married, but they've been together 5 years, and they are committed to each other, and they are, you know, they've engaged, so at some point they will get married, but they you know, aren't as they don't care really about the, you know, the how things go insofar as like marriage needs to come before children, needs to come before XYZ, right? So as said, when actually, again, before the relationship, I had always said, for me, this is what I would want for my relationship, right? I'd prefer that legal commitment before, you know, another human is born into the world, right? And that wasn't like a weird conversation to have even with somebody who I wasn't even actively dating at the time. Right?
It feels like a pretty early conversation you have to have, like...
No, exactly.
In a relationship when you're, you know, 30, right?
Precisely. In the same way that, like, the conversation about children should be one of the early ones you have.
Because it's like you're sifting through to figure out if
you
there's
have
a possibility you could work.
Exactly. If you want the same things. Right?
It's like you wanna like see if this is even worth pursuing before you get too committed.
Exactly. Right? Because and people do this insofar as they think that they can compromise, or they think that they can change somebody's mind, right? So they're in a relationship with someone who is very clear about their preferences on marriage or on children or on whatever it is, right? And the other person thinks that they'll change their mind or they'll do X, Y, Z, which is not a healthy relationship. You shouldn't be in a relationship with that person.
I think that's definitely like where our heroine is at.
Yes.
Yeah. She's like, I'm gonna make him value marriage. It's gonna happen.
I was like, you don't need to. Early on, like literally in the first volume, one of the guys she works with asks her out, and you know she says no because she's got feelings for the male character.
Yeah.
But he said, I want to try dating you with the thought of marriage in mind. Like, that's why did you say no to that guy? I know it's because, chemistry.
Well,
but
she just can't get him out of her head.
But I'm like, oh my god, girl. You barely had 2 conversations with this other guy.
He's her Oshi newscaster.
Oh my god. So, yeah.
It's just like, if this series had gone on to really explore that drama in, I guess, a meaningful way where we're acknowledging how manipulative it is on her part to be constantly trying to fundamentally change how he views his life and future. Like, if they acknowledge that that's kind of a fucked up thing to do, that the way that he's kind of stringing her along with his non-committal answers is manipulative and a pretty fucked up thing to do. Like, if they acknowledge those things, you could get a really interesting, complicated relationship narrative out of this. But the series just isn't that interesting.
No. And that's kind of the letdown, because as I said, not kind of the letdown, it is a letdown, because as I mentioned, when I was reading this initially, I wanted something with a mature look at the conversation around marriage, because it's, you know, it's valuable and valid to have a variety of opinions on this, right? Like, people are allowed to want to be married and want to be, you know, homemakers or stay-at-home mums or whatever it is, in the same way that people are valid in not wanting to get married or wanting to focus on their career. And common law relationship or whatever else it is just as valid as, you know, a legal marriage. There's, you know, that's okay. Those things are all okay. But it doesn't ever want to really talk about that. It's just marriage or nothing. There's no middle ground. There's no...
Marriage or nothing, and that marriage means she's going to leave her job. Like...
Yeah.
Which is established, at the beginning of the series that, like, she wants to stop working when she gets married. But it's just never... I guess in the end, that's kind of what happens, is that, like, she realizes that she wants to stay in her career and also get married. But it's, like, such an all-or-nothing thing throughout most of the series that it's concerning. And I know I brought it up to you in, like, a DM, but it's, like, being post, like, trad wife boom really...
Yeah.
puts a different edge on the main character's dilemma, I guess, here. It's, I want to be like, like staying home, being a full-time homemaker. That's a totally valid choice for a woman to make. Which is true in a vacuum. But like so often these women are pursuing some ideal of femininity and ending up in relationships with men who are incredibly domineering.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna mention that when we do get a rival for the main character's affections, who actually has the same ideals as her in that he wants to get married and he wants his wife to quit her job and stay at home full time. He is horrible and domineering and rapey. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a reality of the situation that the series has present, but then pretends it doesn't.
Absolutely. I think something that people have become more aware of, again, with this rise of, like, the trad wife lifestyle, or whatever it is. There's an element there which has always been there, right? When a woman leaves the workforce to get married and have kids and to just be a stay-at-home mother, that they are relinquishing, especially, they are relinquishing almost complete control of finances, of independence to their husband, right? Yep. And this isn't every case. My mother was stay-at-home, and that was never the case. But so many women, because they feel this push that either they want to be home with their kids or they need to be home with their kids, whether it's because of how they were raised, some kind of religious upbringing, whatever it is, or this idea of the ideal, family, they end up being in a situation with somebody who financially abuses them, and they have no escape, they have no network or support system, and if they do leave their partner, however long into the relationship, and trying to return back into the workforce, they almost never have their own money. They have a gap in their resume of 5, 10, however many years. They don't have any retirement. So, and they have kids to look after on top of all of that. And they're trying to get out of a manipulative or an abusive relationship, right? So there is so much risk to women by just not thinking about it and, you know, wanting to stay home and look after their kids.
It's
which
also
is hard
like,
work as well.
I feel like when we're going into this, like, choice feminist, like, well, it's her choice. It's like, what gets left out of the conversation is his choice here. Because it's like, okay, but let's think about what kind of man is going to desire being in this type of relationship where he's got complete power over her. Like, that's you know, it's value systems and stuff. A lot of time there's a religious element there too, but ultimately the desire to be in such a one-sided dynamic with no escape route for the woman, that's a very specific kind of guy who's going to be attracted to that. Just to, I guess, bring it back to the series, I wanted to talk about our rival in love because, oh my goodness, I hate him so much, and the series wants me to like him, and I feel like I'm getting gaslit.
Yeah.
Because it's like, he is so, because it's like, when he meets, he is, like, he's, you know, powerful boss man who's in an adjacent industry to the main character, so she works with him quite often. He's a banker, too, which is alright. It's like boss of a banking company or something. And he's like mega rich and powerful. Definitely seems like a guy who is used to getting what he wants, because he sure won't leave well enough alone. He, knowing that she is seeing someone, he proposes to her anyway. And he continues to push himself on her throughout the rest of the series, which includes assault. He kisses her without consent multiple times. He goes out of his way to try and get the two of them alone together. Tricks her even into coming to his apartment a couple times, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And, like, consistently says, I don't care that you're in a relationship. I don't care. Like, and just keeps just stalking her.
Yeah.
Stalking her everywhere. He just keeps showing up all over the place. He takes her home one night, back to her place, like in a taxi, and she just wants him to drop her off, like, at the station because she doesn't want to tell him her address, and he manipulates her into telling him the address. And after that point, there are multiple times when he shows up unannounced at her apartment.
Yeah.
And all of this is supposed to be like, oh, he cares about her so much. Oh, he knows what he wants. And I hate it. So,
yeah.
My blood pressure was so high every time he showed up. I was, like, in fight or flight. I was so viscerally afraid of this man. Like, that is a serial killer.
Well, the thing is as well, right, like, okay, so he's meant to be the rival love interest and want the same things as our main character, and that's all well and fine as and whatever, but, like, again, the pushiness is, it's not because he likes her necessarily, it's because he knows that she wants this life where she is at home looking after the house. She's not working, just looking after him and the household and the children. And again, because if it was that he wanted to be in a relationship and wanted to get married, there's a million people in the world, billions you could get married to, right? It doesn't have to be this person, but it is a lot harder to find a woman who's wanting to get married and then just quit everything. No job, no career, just stay at home, cooking, cleaning, getting kids to school, whatever else.
Making a comforting home for him to return to. So
it's not her, like, he wasn't struck by her beauty and thinks she's an amazing person or whatever. I mean, sure,
he does fall in love with her eventually.
He does, quote unquote, fall in love with her, but he falls in love with the idea of herself that she puts out, right? Yep. Because she, as I said, she's not quiet about this idea of, like, I want to be a homemaker. I want to be married. I want to be a homemaker. And that is my biggest goal in life. That I will be so fulfilled. And she is what he wants insofar as, like, that. It could be anyone. She could be anyone. He just... It doesn't matter what she looks like, what her personality is, what anything. It's a plus that, she is an attractive, hardworking woman that he knows, and, like, it's, there's a organic, like, they meet through work and whatever, but it could have been anyone, right? Anyone who would agree to just be stuck at home and living to what he wants, right? So... it's a rivalry insofar as, like, obviously there's two guys who are wanting the attention of our main female character, but it's not, especially initially, it's not a genuine, I was struck by you and, you're wonderful and I can't stop thinking about you and I want you in my life. Please give me a chance. It's like, oh no, we want the same things. So it just makes sense that we should be together, right? Like, I don't know anything about your life or your family. So,
And then he ends up being like this, wise friend, like, person who she goes to for, like, relationship advice. And it's just like, why are you, like, specifically seeking out time to go and see this guy one-on-one?
Especially considering he's so creepy and weird to you.
When he has assaulted you on multiple occasions.
Girl.
And he has said that he will do it again. Like, he makes threats like, if you come to my apartment again, I don't think I'll be able to be such a gentleman. And it's like, he is threatening assault, woman. Like,
that's not sexy. That's not, you do not want this.
But she keeps going.
Be that desperate.
She keeps going.
At this point, it's like, girl, you cannot be this desperate to have marriage, to have a ring on the finger.
Well, it's not even that. She's just like, oh, he gives me such good job advice and relationship advice. You know who I really want some advice from right now? Kamiya. I'm gonna go and ask him out for coffee. And it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And for some reason, even though Ryu knows what Kamiya has done to his girlfriend, and is, has successfully achieved being more mad at Kamiya than at his girlfriend, which, good.
Not always the case.
Successful sort of application of blame. However, for some reason, he's not like, hey, don't see that guy again. He's dangerous.
Like, he will hurt you. He's already hurt you before. Why?
It's like, he'll just have a little, like, pouty, like, I'm jealous. I don't like that you keep spending time with him. And then they just, like, move on like nothing happened. And then she, like, goes to his apartment again. They have sex
about it, and then...
Yeah, they have sex about it. Really boring sex about it. And then, it just happens again. And then it happens again. And it's just like, girl, I don't know. Like, I can't... The series keeps telling me you're, like, smart. But your actions are suggesting otherwise. There's not a lot of self-preservation going on here. And it's like she's, like, you know, trying to be, like, stalwartly, I'm only interested in Ryu, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not interested in Kamiya at all. And it's supposed to be, like, you know, wow, these two are rock solid despite, you know, their differences. Oh, and yet she keeps seeking out this man.
I know. And the thing is, as well, it's like, they're also, the main couple are not rock solid. It's as evidenced by the end of the series.
Yeah. I do want to take a moment to talk about Ryu Nanami's career. Yes. He is a celebrity newscaster. He starts out kind of up and coming, but quickly becomes essentially one of the most famous newscasters on Japanese television. Mm-hmm. Just very popular. I feel like there's not as much cult of this culture in America. Like, there's certainly newscasters that people recognize. But it can be almost like an idol type of thing in Japan. You know, especially female newscasters, will get a great amount of celebrity. They'll get, like, a cutesy fan nickname, and be, like, very recognizable out in public, and have, like, very ardent fans, right? Mm-hmm. So that is what happens to Ryu Nanami, who becomes Nanaryu, right? Because he's got his, like, celebrity newscaster nickname. I thought there were a couple of points here where they were focusing more on, like, his job of being a newscaster in Japan, emceeing a music festival, for example, like the New Year's show type of thing. And I thought that was some of the strongest stuff the series had, because it's just kind of an interesting job for your main character to have. But it's few and far between. And the biggest thing that happens with this is that, like, second half of the series, Nanaryu gets so popular and famous and good at his job that he gets transferred to the Washington, D.C. branch of his station. And he's like... I love how it's like they both get a promotion around the same time, and she's like, yeah, I'll take it. And it doesn't really, like, affect their day-to-day. And then he's like, gets a promotion that takes him halfway around the world, and he's like, yeah, I'll take it, without talking to his girlfriend at all.
It'll be fine.
She'll be happy for me.
She knows I love my job, so that means I did talk to her about it. Oh my god.
They never talk about anything ever. So he just goes to her with this information like, hey, I'm going to Washington, D.C. for an indefinite number of years. We're cool, right? And she's like, yeah, we're cool.
Sure, no problem.
I'm so happy for you.
I just love that you're just so dedicated to your job. And you're like,
we can put off marriage for a few years. And he's like, right, marriage. Well, bye. I'm going to Washington, D.C. Bye.
I'll call you sometimes. I promise.
Yeah, on the phone. Like, Skype exists, but I'll call you on the phone.
Oh, my God. I mean, he was bad enough calling her, or not calling her, I should say, when they were in the same city. Like, it's just like, oh, it's so busy, I should call her. But, like, flaky. I won't.
The flakiest man alive. Oh my god. So he goes to Washington, D.C. And she lets him.
Yeah.
And it's infuriating. Like, especially, like, as someone who's in a long-distance relationship, who was, for a while, in an LDR with someone in North America while I was in Japan. It's just... there's so many, like, little details that are like, did the mangaka even look up any kind of, like, LDR experiences or anything?
No. That's the answer. No.
First of all, like, rule number 1 of an LDR is that, like, your communication game has to be on fucking point. Like, you have to talk constantly and about everything. Like, no full transparency. Like,
yeah.
Otherwise, it's not gonna work.
Especially because the time difference,
that's what everything. I was gonna get to. Oh my god. Do you know the exact moment when I realized that I hated Ryunanami? Is when he was like, hey babe, I've got a couple of days off coming up at the end of the month. Do you want to come visit me?
No.
And it's like, she historically has had just as much problems as you getting time off from her job. And she's going to need she's going to need 3 days on top of, the 2 that you want her to spend with you in transit. Because it takes...
transit and bloody jet lag and oh my god, just...
Yeah, like god. 3 days is the bare minimum just because that's how long it takes to get back and forth. Because first of all, you lose a day going in one direction.
Yes.
And second of all, it's a 13-hour flight.
Yes.
So,
yes.
It's like, that's, literally 2 days just flying. And then a third that you lose crossing the international date line. And she's going to spend the entire 2-day trip jet-lagged off her ass.
Tired as hell.
And it's just like...
kind of tired.
It's just like... You guys have to plan time to see each other. Like, get it. Japanese workplace culture is garbage. Which you definitely get a full view of in this series. But it's just like, if you guys are in an LDR and you value making it work, I'm sorry, but you have to find a way to take that time off. You just do. Otherwise, there's no point. Like,
exactly.
Give up, because it's not gonna work, and you're gonna be miserable. Like, I'm sorry, it's like, this is literally my life right now, so it made me so angry.
Well, I mean, absolutely, and as it should, right? Like, I am not in an LDR, right? I'm very fortunate in that, but my parents were in a time when they didn't have Skype or the internet or anything like that. And they called each other every freaking day.
Exactly.
In 1987. And
you have
to fly 20 hours to go see Mom. Like, it's just, oh my God.
It's like, if you value work more than making it work, then it's not gonna work.
Not gonna work. Nobody cares about their spouse's job as much as these people care about each other's jobs. There's no world. There is zero world. Even, and I can speak from my experience because I work with my partner, right? We are in the same business. We work together. You want your partner to do well and you want them to, be successful in their work. You don't want their work to be your entire relationship, right? You don't want just be like, oh yes, don't worry about me, honey. Just go. Just do whatever you want.
Go. Be a fancy newscaster in America. I'll be here kissing my own ass.
Oh my God.
And it's just
pain.
And then but yeah, it made me so mad that he was like, hey babe, I have a weekend off. Do you want to fly across the Pacific Ocean to see me? It's like, get your ass on a plane.
Dude, what he's probably making more money than she is as well. It's like, guy.
Oh, for sure.
What, you can afford the tickets. You've got the time off. Well, what's this
Make it work, dude. Make it work.
Get on a late night flight on the last day you're working. Take a red eye. Arrive in Japan. And, you go through the jet lag. What's wrong with you?
Oh my God. I'm seething with rage. And then he has the audacity to be like, hey babe, they want me to stay for a few more years. It's like, you guys claim to love each other a lot. But I'm just not seeing it play out in the actions.
No. And all of this to say, so they're in this long distance relationship, and it ends up just being like they are apart for 3 years.
Yep.
That's not they basically don't talk to each other.
Well, they
3 years.
They essentially break up, but then neither of them bothers seeing other people.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, I just couldn't get you out of my head. And then they run into each other at the beta couple's wedding because that guy eventually wore down this woman who didn't want to get married. And they're like, oh my God, it's been so long. How are you? I'm good. Let's get married. Yay! Happy ending. Oh my God. Oh my God.
And then they get married.
And then they get married and then live happily ever after, except for that they won't because they...
yeah, because she still has a stalker on her tail.
Yes, and there is compromise when it comes to relationships. And yes, you can, change your opinion on marriage and commitment and whatever else. You haven't spoken to this person in 3 years. You have no idea what their life is like now.
They live in completely different countries. It's you're gonna encounter culture shock just being in the same room together.
What if she was married? What if she had a kid already? 3 years is enough time for that to happen. Right? Oh. I hate it.
Man. That last couple of chapters is a fever dream. It's just what is happening? Why is everyone cheering? This is not good news.
This is not a happy ending. I hate this.
Um, yeah, so that's everyone's getting married. Yeah, I picked out this title because I thought it would be interesting going back to a title that was exciting when it came out, just for by virtue of what it was.
Yes, yeah.
In terms of demographic and genre, that, you know, maybe hadn't lived up to the hype it had when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And
that we both were like fairly positive on.
Yeah.
When it was being released.
Mm-hmm.
And now, no. Now, no.
That sure was a series that we read.
It sure, yes. I can't say that, like, I honestly am kind of lost for words, because I do remember that I wasn't very fond of the ending. Like, I didn't think it was a strong ending, even when I was reading it volume to volume 10 years ago.
Yeah. I remember the second half being weak.
Yeah, but I don't remember disliking it and having so many problems with it, like, so early on, and consistently throughout the series. And now I'm just like, well, I have now read it twice. I never need to read it ever again. ever again.
Luckily, it is on the Viz Manga app. So if you have that, which you should, if you're...
Yes.
It's still just North America, right? Or is it worldwide now?
I don't know that it's worldwide, but I can read it here in Australia. I think the UK has it, and, you know, some parts of Southeast Asia, etc. Yep. So it is widening up, and thank goodness for that.
So it's not hard to read if for some ungodly reason you want to read it after this podcast episode. After we went all Darwin incident on it.
Which was not the intention. This honestly was not the intention.
Yeah, I thought I would enjoy it. I was like, I don't know. It'll be cute, probably. I remember it being cute.
Yeah.
But, it made me angry instead.
And isn't that what we want for this month of love? Just to be left with anger.
Oh, I had one thing from the series that I wanted to ask your opinion on.
Okay.
So there is one point, sort of in the second half of the series, where our main character has been promoted to a project management position within her company, and she's very excited about it. Her boss overhears her just, like, loudly and enthusiastically telling a coworker that she does not plan on staying at the company long term because she plans on getting married and immediately quitting. And she gets kicked off of the team for that because she expressed that she didn't plan on sticking with the company long term. Now, this is a very real issue in Japan, in that women, when they get married, especially, a lot of times will get sort of demoted, like, covertly, usually. Like, by transferring them to a different branch that happens to be, like, a lower position.
Quieter,
or just gradually getting their hours chopped, getting moved into a part-time position when they didn't want that. Usually, like, the issue that people have generally is that the assumption that the company is making is that because she got married, she is going to need
just not
maternal
have time.
leave.
Yeah, going on leave, not have enough time because she needs to be home with the kids, you know, after school and etc.
Now, this series treats our main character's situation as a similar type of discrimination. How do you feel about that?
It is not a comparable situation because she has made it very clear that she will quit and not come back and doesn't want the career progression and necessarily the responsibility. For now, she's not married, so she's, you know, in a position to take on that responsibility and perhaps be very good as project leader.
And perhaps in getting married, she might stay in a full-time position at her workplace and be just as dedicated to her job. There is no indication that her boss would have demoted her had she simply expressed a desire to get married.
Exactly. The thing is that, like, it wasn't. I mean, it is discrimination in the same. Like, it's discrimination, but she has said, you know, once I'm married, I don't give a fuck about this job. I am out of here. My life I will completely erase all memories I've had of this place. I do not care if it goes bankrupt. Great. I don't care. I do not. In my life, it will be about marriage and my partner and my children. Do not give me and like it's such fickle, right? Because it is this, like, in actual real life, as you said, this is a real problem. It's real discrimination. It's
bad for them to take essentially a private conversation that one of them happened to overhear and
then extrapolate from that and then you know, punish them for that. Because so this isn't even just a Japanese thing, right? Like when women do take maternity leave, it's always like there is an assumption of like, well, if she comes back, then it'll be on reduced hours and she'll have the flexibility to stay at home, XYZ, blah blah blah. So there's always kind of a glass ceiling of like, oh, once a woman is married or has kids, then she will be focused on that more so than work. So we don't want to give her too much work because she won't be as focused on her work and won't be able to get the results that this young man who started in the company two minutes ago will.
Yeah. I also want to point out that the project management position that she was in was specifically being a member of a committee dedicated to the long-term vision for success of the company that she was in.
So it's like within the series, like, because we have read the whole series, we know that she will be in this company for at least another 3 years. So is that long-term enough to be part of the long-term vision? I don't know. They probably are more looking at 10 years or 15 or 25, right?
Yeah.
But she's made it very clear. And yes, it's in a private conversation, but she wasn't exactly being, you know, coy
discreet.
About it.
Yeah.
She
was shouting,
always talking
actually.
about this. So is it shitty? Yes. Is it justified? I would argue yes. You know? Like,
I just think it's, like, bad representation of a very real issue.
Yeah,
because your heroine is just not very smart. That's what it comes down to. I'm sure she's very good at her real estate job. I've been assured that she's excellent at it over and over throughout the series.
Many, many times, yeah.
But in terms of the personal life choices that she makes throughout the series, I just am not convinced. that, you know, she has more than a handful of brain cells bouncing around in there. It's just...
Mm-hmm. Well, anyone who can agree to a proposal after being broken up with someone 3 years prior has some major issues that I don't think we can diagnose in this podcast, but...
God. It's like, you know... Yes, compared to other, like, Harlequin romance josei series that we were getting at the time, she is more of a character, but that's only in comparison, because she is truly no consistency to her characterization at all, to her motivations at all. Yeah. And they keep trying to convince me that she's, you know, sincere, secure in her convictions, strong in her convictions, that she's, you know, a go-getter, hyper-competent, eternally faithful to her beloved. And I'm just not seeing it. I'm just not seeing it. Yeah, at least the series does have the decency to explicitly characterize Nanaryu as flaky as fuck. But not enough.
Not enough. And he still wins in the end because...
Yep.
I mean, I guess he changed his mind about marriage. He got over his sad backstory and...
His sad backstory of having an affair with a married woman.
Which is such a shitty sad backstory.
It traumatized him.
I was like, dude, you did this to yourself. Come on. Like,
he
this
was
is
like,
not...
she wouldn't leave her husband for me.
Yeah,
now
no
I hate the
Sherlock.
institution of marriage.
Oh, God.
It kind of pisses me off also that, like, the woman who is pro getting married and becoming a homemaker gets to have, like, actual salient human reasons for why she wants to do that, but, like, the guy who is uninterested in the institution of marriage has to feel that way because he's traumatized.
Yeah, has a sad backstory that he did to himself.
Yeah, and it's like...
And...
It's like... You know, some people are uninterested in marriage for normal reasons, actually.
Normal reasons. And that's actually fine. That's actually not an issue.
Yeah, you know? It's actually okay. It's not something that needs to be fixed.
Or it could even be from, again, quote-unquote, sad backstory. But, like, that's also fine. It doesn't have to be as stupid as it was, right? Like, I don't know that many people
I also,
could...
like, they had this interesting concept of a character who stays with a husband who constantly cheats on her, does not love her, and, you know, she gets relief from that by, you know, sleeping around with different men. But we never actually learn why she insists on staying married to this asshole.
I don't know. Maybe because she's also shallow and just wants to be married. Like, just doesn't care to who. Although, which doesn't make sense because you can get divorced and then remarried. So it's
it's like why aren't you doing that?
Why don't you just do that?
Everyone's getting married. Nobody's getting divorced.
Yeah, I don't know.
50% of marriages beg to disagree.
Yeah, well, exactly. In conclusion, read Sweat and Soap. Like, it's just so much better.
I know it's not a josei.
It's not a josei, but if you want a romance between adults, just read that one. I don't know. You're not going to get too much better than that. If you're wanting to read a josei, like, specifically, find anything on, you know, Seven Seas steamship imprint if you want to, you know, hot and spicy.
I guarantee they're going to be way spicier than this series
this.
because the series is not spicy.
If you
like it has a lot of sex, but
but there's so many josei out right now, from Tokyo Pop, from Kodansha, from Seven Seas, from everyone, right? Like is it still kind of the smallest demographic out of all of the manga being published? Yes, absolutely. That's always been the case, and it always will be the case. Mm-hmm. But you have so many better options. So many better options than this. And if you are really, like, just so curious you need to read it now, get it from your library or from the Viz app. As
yeah,
Ray
just
said.
Read it on the Viz app.
It's
all there.
Like, you can get the subscription and read other good stuff, because there's a bunch of really good series on there. But if you're wanting to read this, you can also just do that. And it's not super duper long. It's 9 volumes, 44 chapters in all. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll throw in a personal recommendation. If you want, like, adult, working adults in love, josei. Mm-hmm. A series that is on Manga Plaza, the one that we did an episode on.
Yes, yeah.
Called A Queen and an Old Maid, which I recommended in that episode of our podcast. Bisexual male lead, sort of a I don't know what you'd say, like, kind of chronically online female lead, but their relationship is way better, and they both have personalities. And, queer rep. So, there you go.
Alrighty. And with that, I think we've said all we can about this series.
Done and dusted.
Done and dusted. Next month, we're going to be doing a creator spotlight. We will be talking about Oyoko Ano. Got just a palate cleanser after this one. Getting some good josei in our reading rotation.
Yes. Feminist even.
Feminist even. And so, as always, if you have any questions that you want us to address or answer, I will make a post about it on Blue Sky. It's taking a little bit longer, I think, for people to make the switch from there. So we haven't had questions the last couple of months, but it is there if people are interested. As I said at the beginning of the episode, you can find us on all of the podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, etc., as well as YouTube podcasts, and my YouTube channel, Simply G. You can find this podcast on Blue Sky, as said, at readwrite2left.com.au or Blue Sky, whatever. You can find me at Simply G, both on YouTube and Blue Sky. You can also find Ray on Blue Sky at Wimpix, WHIMPIX. Follow us because, we're fun to hang out with. And yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful February. Hope you all had a wonderful Valentine's Day or Galentine's Day or whatever else you want to celebrate mid-month. And we will catch you in the next episode. Bye till then.
Bye, guys.